So Laura, to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about DATCAP and what it is that you do?
I'd love to. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for spending this rainy afternoon learning about consumer protection and DACAP. It's a really great agency and resource for the state of Wisconsin. So I'm glad you're here to learn about it. We are the state's largest consumer protection agency. And what we do is we investigate consumer fraud in Wisconsin. We have a system that's set up. We have a hotline that I'm sure we'll say that number a million times during this call. And that is staffed with consumer protection experts who will field your calls and answer your questions about if you may have been a victim of a fraud, if you're concerned about if you're seeing fraud in your neighborhood or your community. We love those calls, even if you're not a victim. If somebody calls and says this is happening, we can do information around it and address that. And then if you call us, sometimes we're not the right folks, but the other beauty is we know where to get you, so we can get you to the right agency. So that's our hotline. Then we have a mediation unit. So if people have been a victim of a fraud or they think they may have been, they can file a complaint with the department, and then department will at first reach out to that business and try to determine what has happened. A lot of times it's a communication breakdown, and the vast majority of what we do is resolve those issues in the mediation unit. So it may have been a violation. We may need some education, or there may not be a violation, but we get a fair amount of restitution back to consumers. Last year was around $11 million through that mediation unit alone. So if you have a business dispute and you can't get it resolved yourself, use our complaint resources and we can absolutely help you with that. If those mediators or those folks at the hotline see something that looks like a violation of law, we then move that up to our consumer protection investigators. And those are usually patterns of conduct that we're concerned about, or a particularly egregious business. We will investigate that. And if we think there's a real violation, we will try to resolve it ourselves, or we'll send those enforcement actions to the Department of Justice for enforcement, or we will send them to a local DA. And a lot of our landlord tenants work goes to local DAs, and we do a lot of work around that. So that's sort of what we do in terms of scams and enforcement. And then the other thing we do is this: we educate. We have two consumer specialists that rove the state and do presentations on any number of issues. They work in high schools and middle schools and churches and community centers. They go to, sheriffs. We train police officers. We train attorneys, all kinds of things on the fraud that we're seeing, the laws that we enforce, and how to identify fraud and keep yourself safe from fraud. So lots and lots of outreach in that regard. We also have a diversity engagement specialist who works with particularly in our diverse communities and some of our more vulnerable communities that get targeted in different ways. So really doing a lot of outreach there. So education is the first, line of defense, and we absolutely exploit that. And then if we can't do that, we investigate and enforce.
Awesome. I always love referring people to DATCAP because, like you said, you can either help or get them to the right place. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that you mentioned there. And one is that DATCAP wants to hear from you, even if you haven't lost money or information. They want to know what's going on in the community. So I know folks sometimes have a hesitancy to report stuff, especially if they didn't lose money. They're kind of like, oh, whatever. But it helps everyone when we know more about that. And the other one is, you mentioned that you do outreach in like high schools and middle schools, and you're talking to law enforcement. And I just want to reiterate for folks that this kind of stuff affects everyone. I know we're here with AARP today, which kind of has an older demographic lean, but we recognize that like this happens to your family members, it happens to you. So just keep in mind as you're hearing about some of the scams today that, it's not just for older folks, it's for everyone. So,
Right.
uh,
Well, let me say on that first piece quickly, Courtney, a couple of examples when we get calls to the hotline about some of the like Medicare scams, these imposter scams, they'll hit particular area codes. So even if you don't fall for it, giving us a heads up allows us to contact the sheriff's department there. It allows us to get out a press release. It allows us to get into that community. So flagging it for the department that has resources to get that information out is really important. And then another example of why that's important is when we get these robocalls, we take the numbers that people give us and we send those to the federal government, and they have a database of numbers, and they're tracking those numbers that are being exploited all the time, and that goes into investigation of these robocall entities. So real things happen when you call, and with that information, even if you're not a victim, it can help us in an investigation and help us with education. So super important.
awesome. You mentioned robocalls, so I want to use that as a segue into my next question, which is, what were some of the biggest scams that you saw this year?
Yes, I am ready to talk about that. So we track our scams and our calls, so we know how to curtail our education. So this year, the Publisher Clearinghouse scam, the gift that we'll keep on giving, was in the top calls for a number of months. And again, that is a scam that's been around forever, but because people know Publishers Clearinghouse and they're familiar with it, scammers continue to ride that familiarity and try to exploit that. So, the scam basically works where a fraudulent entity tries to convince you that you're a winner, and they send you an email, they send you a call, but they don't do it the way Publishers Clearinghouse does it. So then of course they suggest that you've won and you have to pay all of this money in order to get the prize. Now that is the telltale sign of so many scams, that if it's a free prize but it costs you money, that is a red flag that you should not be engaging. But no, we get a lot of those calls around those scams, and it's still effective because again, with all of these scams, sometimes we hear them and we think it's not, we can't imagine somebody falls for it, but it just takes one or two people and they get a lot of money. And every time we do presentations, there's somebody in the audience that says, I got scammed, or somebody else we know got scammed. And so it's just really important to continue to talk about these scams, so when you see them, you can identify them.
Awesome. And I do just want to quickly highlight, because I know, like you said, folks are kind of like, oh, this would never happen to me. These people are professional criminals. It's their job to be convincing. It's their job to get your money and information. So just being wary and talking about these kinds of things are, like you said, our best prevention.
Yeah.
Were there any other, so Publishers Clearinghouse had a big comeback this year.
Yes.
Was there anything else that you guys heard a lot about, or that frequently popped up in Wisconsin?
Yeah, so I got a list here.
Okay.
Amazon was a big scam, right? So those are those delivery scams where they tell you you're going to get a delivery. This one came in a different form, a couple different forms. So there's a delivery scam that you're getting a package and you don't recall getting this package, and you get a text or an email and it has a link in it, and you click on the link, and the link either takes you to a place where they ask for information. They say they need to verify your account, so they're asking for your personal identifying information, or they're asking for money, your financial information, and they're going to steal that. That's what they're going to do. The other thing that's sort of tricky about this is sometimes they'll take you to a site that looks really legitimate. It looks like the site that you think you're supposed to be visiting. So what we tell folks is, even if you've ordered something, go and you think you might be getting a delivery notification, don't use the link that comes in your text. go to a website separate, log into that Amazon account, check your delivery status, but go to a site that you trust. Ignore those links that are coming in, because that's what's going to get you into trouble. The other thing that Amazon scams that we saw throughout the year were the scams where somebody delivers something to you that you didn't order. And so there's a couple theories around this. One is that they're sending things to you because they want to say that someone has legitimately ordered this, and then they do a fake review of the product. So, when you see these reviews, it says verified purchaser. Some of these scams are they create a fake account, they ship things so they can create a fake review so they can get more purchases of this particular item. So if you were to get an item and that you didn't order, now this is the holiday, so that's going to be a little bit trickier. But if you get an item and you didn't order it, you absolutely should call Amazon and check your account, because someone may have opened up a fraudulent account in your name and are doing this. So notify Amazon, but that is a real problem.
Oh my gosh. I just want to quickly butt in, because I literally just yesterday saw a post on Nextdoor where somebody was like, I got this package from Amazon and I didn't order it. What should I do? Now I have the perfect response. So
Yes.
Sorry, go on. What was the next one?
Well, yeah, it's fishy. It's very fishy. And you should, and if it happens, you should check your credit. It means that there's a chance your identity is being used and someone has opened an account. So you really do need to look at your financials, maybe put a credit freeze on for a bit, check your credit cards, that kind of thing. So the Wisconsin lottery scam was a big one this year. And this one's pretty tricky. This is when you get a text that a lottery winner has just gotten too much money and they want to give some of it away. And you are one of the lucky people that they're going to give it to. So here again, there's a phone number you're supposed to call or a link you're supposed to click, and you'll get taken to this place where they will share $10,000 of their multi-million-dollar winning with you. And this is really sort of set up for people who think that there's lots of generous people in the world and they're going to do that. And of course there are, but in this particular instance, these are scammers, and they're going to take you to a different site. They may ask you for money. They may ask you for your personal identifying information, but there's no one that's sharing their lottery winnings with you. They're just trying to steal your money. So.
Yeah. And this always makes me think of that phrase, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And I just, if I won many millions of dollars, I would for sure share it with people, but I would share it with people that I know. I wouldn't be reaching out necessarily to strangers in a random way. So
yes, exactly.
Cool.
So the next three are imposter scams, and they're government related. And so, what happens, and maybe many of us know this, but what happens is when the government rolls out a program, there are scammers out there that are going to take advantage of that program and say, here's how you can quickly get on the list, or here's we are the government and we're really going to give this program to you. So anytime there is government assistance, we saw it with rental assistance, we saw it with unemployment insurance, Medicare, you have people who are going to take advantage of that. So Medicare enrollment, fake people calling, I am from the government, I am from Medicare, either your account has been jeopardized, or let me help you enroll, and they're not real. Same with unemployment insurance, DWD. During the COVID crisis, there was some additional funds available for folks with unemployment. There were lots of identity theft around that, and filings with the DWD saying people had filed for unemployment when they hadn't. And then more recently, the big one is student loans. They've been in the news quite a bit. There's a lot of confusion around student loans, and what the government assistance is there. And that is where scammers really flourish. The more confused you are, the more you don't know where to go, the more they say, I have all the answers for you. Just call me, give me a little money, and you're off to the races. So again, with all three of these, if you are getting an unsolicited text, email, or pop-up or call, you should ignore it. You should go to the source. You should go to Medicare.gov. You should go to DWD.gov. You should go, in the case of the student loans, you should go to a USAID, the Department of Education, and find out there. But go to trusted sources of information, because maybe there is an issue with your loan, or maybe there is an unemployment. But you want to know that you're talking to somebody that you can trust. With the unemployment piece, that was folks taking out unemployment on your behalf. So if you get one of those, you absolutely should call the DWD or call DADCAP, and we'll help you because someone has stolen your identity and is trying to take out money on your behalf. So that you shouldn't ignore. A lot of these you can just ignore. I don't have student loans, so I'm not going to pick up that call.
Yeah.
But unemployment from DWD, you should pay attention to. There may be an issue with your identity, so call DADCAP and we can totally help you with that. Mm-hmm.
Great. And I know, when people have their identity compromised, there is, like you said, sometimes some confusion about what are my next steps? What all do I have to do? Like, what is going on? And it's great to know that DACAP is there to walk you through the process and make sure, everything, all your bases are covered. So, it's interesting hearing about all of these different scams that you guys saw kind of trending and popping up this year. How do people, what's the best way to keep up with kind of what's hot and happening right now?
Well, so DADCAP, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. If there is something happening, we'll issue an alert. Our website has all of these scams and how they work and how to keep yourself safe. So you can also visit our website. I'm sure the AARP has similar really good information. But yeah, I mean, talking about this with your community and with your family is super important, because these scams just are not going to go away. They're going to be part of our everyday life, and knowing how to spot them is really, really important. We went to a cybersecurity summit in October, and one of the data points that I took away that I just thought was really interesting is that over 90% of these data breaches at a company are human error. They're not sort of brute force. Some hacker is trying to get into a company. It is somebody that clicked on a link, that they thought was really customer service, or somebody who used a weak password, or somebody who shared information they shouldn't have shared. And I don't mean to blame the victim, because I think some of these scams are very, very complex. And, you may say this to your listenership and your viewership a lot, but the data just came out from the FTC. The people who are being scammed the most are younger people. Older people often have a nest egg and are more vulnerable financially, because when they get scammed, they have more to lose. But they're more savvy. They click on these links less. They're paying more attention. It's the younger people that are really becoming more and more scams. So, oftentimes people say, well, you need to talk to your grandmother and your great aunt about these scams. I say, you need to talk to your grandkid and your right?
Yeah.
So really, and the other thing we've taken to saying is, you need to respond to things and not react. And by that, we mean you need to not react emotionally to what's coming into your inbox and on your call and on your phone or that pop-up, but respond to it, which takes time to sit back and think and process. Is this something I ordered? Is this the third friend request I got from somebody on Facebook, and I know I'm already their friend? is this an email from my customer service company or my HR, or does this look a little fishy? I already took that training. Why are they sending this to me again, et cetera, et cetera. That's really going to help you and keep you safer.
Great. I know I have some more questions for Lara, but I did just want to remind everyone that there is the Q&A function and the chat box. So if you have a question about any of the scams we've talked about or something we haven't talked about, feel free to drop that in the chat and Q&A, and we'll get to those in a little bit. So Lara, you gave us a really great overview, like I said, of stuff that you saw trending this year and how people can keep up with that. Looking ahead for next year, or even the holiday season is coming up. We know sometimes scams crop up kind of in a cyclical fashion. So while we're looking ahead to the new year, what should people be on the lookout for?
Well, one thing I want to talk about is charity scams. A lot of us like to give during this time of year. Maybe we give on behalf of other people as a gift. Terrific. But it's really important to know who you're giving to. And the good news is there's some really great resources out there for you to look into to do that investigative research about the charity. So there is charitynavigator.org that you can look at. There's give.org. I think BBB has a charity site. And in all these places, you can see what the charity, whether the charity has any complaints against it. But you can also find out how much money are they actually giving to the cause that you're interested in giving to, or how much is going to overhead or administration, because that might be important to you. But what you do see at this time of year are those unsolicited calls about charities. And it isn't to say that you should ignore them entirely, right? Because a lot of they're legitimate charities calling, but you should do your homework. You should, if you've never heard of them, you maybe can listen to their spiel on the phone, but you get off the phone and then you do your own research and make sure you go to charitynavigator.org. You go to the Wisconsin Department of Financial Institutions to see if they're registered, because here in Wisconsin, if you're soliciting funds, you need to be registered in the state of Wisconsin. And then, as I said earlier, you can get online and just search them in the word fraud and complain or scam and see if people have been complaining about them. But absolutely do your homework. If you can't find that charity, if they're too difficult to figure out what they do or who they are, probably need to keep looking for that particular charity that you want to donate to. And, again, the other thing I want to say about charities is that we also are doing a lot of giving around for people who have medical fraud or medical debt, rather, or unfortunately, I've seen GoFundMe's for funerals and all kinds of things like that. So these platforms have an ability for you to research that particular fund. So if you're not getting this request from somebody you really know, but it's a friend of a friend of a friend, or it's been circulating, I would suggest maybe keep looking and maybe find another way to donate. But if you're really interested, you can go to those sites, you can look who's sponsoring that, and you can figure out if they're a real person. If you can't figure that out, then you shouldn't be donating to them. So as more often we're asked to give money through these various venues, researching it is going to be important for us to get to the bottom of who we're giving to and whether they're a real entity or not.
Yeah, that's like you said, I feel like around the holidays, people do feel a lot more generous, and especially with, inflation the way it is, people want to help out our neighbors and our neighbors' friends, like you said, and it's just really important that your money is actually going where you want it to go. So charities is one thing to look out for. Anything else we should be kind of wary of as the year comes to a close?
Well, I have a lot of tips around holidays, right? As we sort of embark on all of our holiday shopping, spending some time to make sure when you're online shopping, you're keeping yourself safe. So again, using a credit card with fraud protection, using a peer-to-peer with fraud protection, using that incognito website or a website that doesn't track you is going to be really important. Not using public Wi-Fi when you're using a credit card or any payment means. So really making sure that you're doing it in a safe way online, making sure all your systems are up to date, that you've got that antivirus software up to date. And folks get sort of tedious, think that's sort of tedious, but those people are spending their whole life, that's their day job, trying to figure out where are our vulnerabilities. And so they're telling you we're vulnerable, but we've got to fix. You should listen to them, update your software. So I would say that about online. The other thing is gift cards. Gift cards are a great option over the holidays for that difficult to buy for grandkid or friend. But there are also ways in which you can be defrauded. So some of the things you need to think about when you buy gift cards, if you're buying them in a big box store or, live, make sure they haven't been tampered with. A lot of times, gift cards can be, the back can be scratched off, the number can be stolen, and that gift card can be drained before you even buy it. So make sure they haven't been tampered with. There are also some now that are coming in plastic coating. So that prevents the tampering, but something to think about. If you're buying them online, you should buy them from a trusted source. We discourage these third-party lenders or because you don't know if they've been tampered with, you don't know if it's a legitimate gift card. And then the other sort of unusual and fraught thing with gift cards is there are gift card bots. And what these do is they are, computer algorithms that can attack a particular store and just start running through numbers until they find a gift card that has a balance on it, and then they deplete that balance. So in other words, they can have the numbers from the back of a gift card that they know this sort of framework, and then they build a computer program to sort of run numbers until they hit a legitimate number that's on the back of one of the cards and deplete it. So that's tough to protect yourself against. What you can do is keep the receipt. So if you don't use the whole gift card, you keep the receipt. And if it does get depleted, you can go back to the business and say, I still have this much money on it. If the business knows they've been hit by a gift bot, they, oftentimes will honor that. And if they don't, you can give us a call and we can work that out with you. Then the other thing you should do is just use it. Use that gift card. Don't, I am guilty of this, but you have this stack of gift cards that you just haven't gotten to, or you use like $5 on it. And those are the ones that are vulnerable. So if somebody gives you a gift card, treat yourself to that latte or that pound of coffee or whatever it is, but use it because if you have it sitting around, there is a chance it could get stolen by one of these gift bots.
Excellent tips, especially around the gift cards.
Yes.
We do have a question in the Q&A, and this goes back to, you talked a little bit about the Amazon issues that we saw this year. And Sandy says that she repeatedly got a text on her cell phone saying they were from Amazon, and due to some fraud issues, they're going to suspend her account if she didn't contact them within 24 hours. And then they sent a link. It looks like it's from Amazon, but when she contacted them, when she got the first one, they told her that they wouldn't ever send a text. So she never clicks on the links in the text. She reports and deletes them. But she's wondering, so first of all, thank you, Sandy, for sharing this, and I'm glad to hear you report and delete and don't click links. Amazing. But she's wondering if it does any good to report them on her like cell phone, or if she should be reporting somewhere else.
Reporting it to her cellular company. Is that what she means?
It sounds like, I'm not an iPhone user, so I'm not sure if there's an option to like report right in the text chain, or if do you know what I mean?
Oh, so report a scam. Well, so I do think that reporting as spam rather means that is going to be junk going forward, and anything from that exchange will be junk. So I would suggest doing it. It's pretty easy to do. I would absolutely get on Amazon and make sure there's nothing going on with your account, and that there isn't something happening there. I mean, the reality with these texts and phone numbers, there are certain phone numbers that get used over and over again for fraudulent purposes. And so it's a bit like whack-a-mole, but certainly the more you block, the more your phone becomes smarter and can identify it. So maybe a month later, that number can come up again in a scammer's tranche and they can try to use it, but your phone has already blocked it, right? So I think it's worth doing, particularly because it's not hard to do. Is it going to solve all the problems? No, it's not. But not clicking the link is absolutely brilliant. So I'm glad you didn't do that.
Awesome. Thanks again, Sandy, for that. And she did clarify that it does allow you to report it on your cell phone. So like Lara said, it doesn't hurt to, report, block, delete, all of that stuff is going to be helpful.
Yeah, so let me just quick say, there was a law passed in 2019, that a federal law that was designed to have more investigative resources around robocalls and more cooperation with the large carriers. And so what that means is a lot of these carriers are cooperating with the departments or with the federal government in terms of collecting these fraudulent numbers. I mean, not tracking people, but as I say, there are certain numbers that get used over and over and over again. And identifying these numbers can track you back to a robocall, center that could be out of the country. So being able to report this to your carrier means your carrier is also not only blocking it for you, but to the extent that they're providing this information to the federal government, it's useful there too. And by that, I mean just the phone number itself, not, the contents of the calls or what have you.
Awesome. I know that we are coming up on time a little bit, so I did just want to quickly cover, Lara, if someone is the victim of a scam. I know we kind of already talked about DATCAP has that awesome helpline, and I can drop the phone number in chat. It'll be in the email. Where, if people don't want to get on the phone, how else can they report or interact with you guys?
So they can go to our website and file a complaint, and our website is datcp.wi.gov. And they can also send us an email at dadcaphotline@wisconsin.gov. And that is DATCP hotline@wisconsin.gov. Yes. And I encourage folks to do it. We, as I say, a great group of folks answering the call, answering emails, very knowledgeable, and can be really helpful in getting to the bottom of things that have gone wrong. And that email again is DATCP hotline@wi.gov.
Oh,
I think I
.wi.
lost it, Wisconsin. I was just checking that at wi.gov. Yeah.
I will put the corrected, that was my bad. I'll put the corrected one in the chat for anyone watching live. And like I said, you'll get in follow-up email with all of these resources that are absolutely correct. So awesome. Lara, I'm going to talk a little bit about AARP's resources, and then I'm going to kick it back to you for kind of some final thoughts. So this is your time to kind of think about what you would like to end on. But as Lara kind of alluded to earlier, AARP does have some fraud prevention resources. So we have a website, aarp.org/fraud. So you can go there to find articles about different kinds of scams. We've got kind of like tip sheets on all kinds of different ones. And we do also have articles about scams that we see trending kind of across the country. If you are looking for Wisconsin specific, what's happening in our state, in my community, I definitely recommend, like Lara said, keeping up with DATCAP or other Wisconsin agencies for that kind of local stuff. But a lot of this stuff, when we see it in one state, we see it across the country. So AARP has that covered. We also have a podcast. You can sign up to get bi-weekly emails about this kind of stuff. And we did also recently launch free online peer support groups. So Lara mentioned, there's this mediation aspect, and DATCAP does a great job of getting funds back, but we also recognize that there is an emotional toll a lot of the times with these kinds of things, especially when scammers know scary stuff about you. They've stolen your identity, they've threatened and coerced you. So we wanted to address kind of that emotional aspect. So you can find out more about those support groups at aarp.org/fraud support. And like I said, those are free. You don't have to be an AARP member to take advantage of any of these resources. So take advantage yourself, share them with your friends and family, especially the younger people in your life, because as we've discussed today, this affects everyone. I would like to invite Lara to give us your closing thoughts. I know we covered a lot of ground. You had amazing information, but what would you like to leave viewers with today?
Well, thanks, first of all, for letting me, for bringing me on. I really enjoyed it. And I love the partnership we have with AARP. You guys do some really important work, and I love to be a fly on the wall to watch it and also collaborate with you. So thanks again for that. I've said what our website has and our resources, and you're going to provide that. I think what I want to sort of end on is what you were getting at, which is a lot of people get victimized and there's no shame in it. The scammers are very sophisticated these days, and the more that we are honest with ourselves and talking about it and identifying it, the more we can keep each other in our community safe. So I really, really appreciate the work that ARP is doing. I appreciate the sharing of stories like our listener did today. And then the recognizing that it's not your fault, and we are here to help one another, and we have the resources to do so. So absolutely lean on us if you have been a victim of a fraud or if someone in your community has.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lara, for joining us. Thank you for all the work you do and that DATCAP and everyone involved does. And thanks everyone for joining us. And until we see you again, stay safe.